WESN.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
Because vision doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
WESN.
Welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. I think it's everyone's favorite day of the week. I know it's mine. It is Friday the 23rd of August, 2024. And thank you very much for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. Time is flying. Where is the year going? I thought we just celebrated the start of a new year. We're about to celebrate the end of a year. It's just right around the corner. Believe you, you might think I'm rushing it. I'm not. It's rushing us. I think that's what's happening. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, as we start today, we're focusing on Youth Week 2024. Actually, recognition of Youth Week 2024 in TNT began on Tuesday, and celebrations are actually being sponsored by the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. As I said, it began on Tuesday. It's carded to end tomorrow. But there were events including sports events, youth in business events, youth in agriculture events, digital caravan events. But there was one little and big at the same time. A little thing that was wrong with it, though. Everything for Youth Week in Trinidad and Tobago was being held at the National Academy for Performing Arts. And there were some who were not so happy about that. In fact, I'm joined this morning by one such individual, a youth advocate and the Commonwealth Young Person of the Year 2023, but also the founder of the Autism Siblings and Friends Network, Miss Maya Kirti-Nanan. Good morning, Maya, and welcome back to AM Prime.
Hi, good morning, Keaton. Thank you for having me again.
How are you doing? How are you keeping?
I'm doing well. How have you been?
I'm doing well for now, thank you. Try to keep busy.
Yeah, I understand.
For Maya, as I mentioned, Youth Week 2024, it began on Tuesday. It's ending tomorrow, and every day an event is taking place, being hosted by the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. But you expressed a sense of dissatisfaction with the scheduling of the events. Please tell us a bit more about your position.
Yes, so my main focus is on the fact that the Ministry of Youth organized Youth Week, right, to celebrate it. And out of these 6 events, only one of these events are in South. And that basically is my main issue as someone who is from Claxton Bay and as someone who is the founder of an NGO who have youths from as far as Cedars, to as far as Dagomat and Valsina and so on. But, I'm focusing more on South and Central because we are the ones who are missing out on such great opportunities that the Ministry of Youth are hosting this week.
Missing out on opportunities, you said. So you believe that the ministry has not been fair to young people of Trinidad and Tobago by focusing solely on West. The majority of the events are being held at the National Academy for Performing Arts in Port of Spain. You think that an injustice has been done?
Yeah, I certainly think that, and the next issue as well is that the fact that the Ministry of Youth is organizing these events for youths, but they are also taking place from like 3 or 4 in the afternoon till 9 p.m. in the night. So, I think that that's just ridiculous. I mean, right now we have so many murders happening. People are afraid, parents are scared of their children, for them to travel. And, the fact that they put these events in the nighttime, these events should be held during the day for youths, at convenient locations. And, I wonder if the ministry was thinking, is it okay for people to be traveling at these hours, because that's another thing. They didn't even provide transportation or even think to themselves, okay, maybe we can offer a shuttle service or so on for youths from these other rural areas or so on throughout the country to be able to have access to come and attend these events that they are hosting at Napa.
Do you think, though, that the ministry has a responsibility to provide some sort of travel service when transportation already exists?
And I mean, considering the state of crime, right, like with the father and the 5-year-old girl that was murdered, and, we have so many reckless things happening. Crime is happening almost every other day in this country. I think it is very important that the ministry should protect and have safety for our young people, especially when it comes to transportation, and, especially since their parents may not be able to attend the events with them. I know that they stated that they wanted the parents to attend the events with them from around 4 to 9 in the night. But realistically speaking, our parents work from 8 to 4. Some of them even work town, so they have to face that traffic on a daily basis. So is it that the parent now have to go home to their child in South or Central and then go back up north? Is it that their child is now required to jump in a maxi or taxi and go meet them somewhere? You're not really thinking about the safety of young people. You see so many sexual assault cases that are probably not even heard about. And it's just really concerning for me as a young person because I know that even when I walk right on the side of the road trying to go buy food or something, men heckle me. So imagine for these other girls out there as well, how it may be for them.
But I hear you. So you're speaking about the importance of access to resources and opportunities for young people across TNT. But in reading of your position, you also use the term discrimination. You think that the Ministry of Youth Development is discriminating against youth from other parts of Trinidad outside of Western Trinidad?
Yeah, I feel that way because they really didn't take us into consideration when they were organizing these events. And with regards to discrimination as well, I feel like they're not even taking the special needs population into consideration as well. Last year, Youth Awards Minister Cummins said that he was impacted by the fact that, someone who's visually impaired getting one of the awards and so on. But what are you also doing for them? I just think that, the ministry really messed up this time and they ignored all youths from Central and South. So I feel like they should just admit that they did that and, maybe do better, as I said before, have it in different areas for them, they represent youths. And when you deflect and you try to cover up like this, because if you notice in the press release statement that they sent back out, they spoke about all the programs that they have in South. Yes, I understand that, but my main focus was on the Youth Work Week. So when it is you cover up, when you beat around the bush talking about all the other programs that you have in South and Central and wherever else, what kind of example are you setting for the young people in this country? Are you making excuses? Are you showing us how to make excuses?
Well, let me take a look now at the response on the part of the ministry to your points, the points that you made, because you did take to social media as well. And the ministry's response stated that the programs are all inclusive and accessible to all youth between the ages of 16 to 35, regardless of location and background. And they give a justification for the time as well, for events from 4 p.m. till about 9 p.m. And it's making the argument so that working parents, and they spoke to that too, working parents can accompany their children to events after work. I mean, is this response to your complaints and queries a fair justification on the part of the ministry?
Is not, especially with it looking as if these are just concerts or facts that they are holding in Napa this week. I feel like it could have been a bit more important where they organize, youth leadership workshops and motivational workshops for these youths, where they have proper talks and proper conversations, and where they are able to discuss their ideas and move forward. They can focus on areas that are really more important to the youth, like, how to access grants, how to start your own organization and build on that. Help them access funding and help them, strive to be better youths, not just focus on youths here in Trinidad, but, focus on things outside of Trinidad, because there are so many opportunities out there. We just need the right guidance and support that can be given by the ministry if they put, a little bit better thought and consideration into the activity and events that they are hosting.
Do you think that the ministry generally, though, provides that level of support or that level of guidance for youth in Trinidad? That's exactly what they are charged with. And they tend to have quite a lot of programs. But in your opinion, are those programs of success?
In my opinion, yes, they do have programs, which we are really grateful for. As a young person, I even attended one of their programs in the past. But I think that they can do better. I understand that they are a new ministry and they're still building and trying to figure it out and so on, but they can do better, because as a young person, when I attend one of their programs, right, how is it that they can now follow up with me and help me in the future, like I do one of their programs, like for example, they offer these diploma courses that they have right now. Could you help me maybe get an internship somewhere that can help me make an income and have that income, and maybe even help me with work experience, so when it is I go out there and I start applying for jobs, I not just have this diploma, I have the experience to go with it. So I think more can be done in that case.
Now, in that regard as well, many people who are watching might think this is not a big issue at all. Why are we making a mountain out of a molehill? Why is this such a big issue? Why is this something that we need to be concerned about?
Because, for the past 10 years, I started my NGO when I was 12 years old, and I have interacted with thousands of youths throughout the country, not just the ones who volunteer with us, but also the ones when I speak at schools, do the training workshops. So I think that this is my duty to speak up when I see this kind of ridiculousness coming from the ministry. that is supposed to be supporting youths. And if you notice as well, if you go on Facebook or Instagram and so on, and you check under the ministry posts with International Youth Week, you'd see other people commenting and voicing their opinion, saying, why is this not happening in South? How are South people supposed to have access to it? And if you also notice, you'd see the youth workers from that ministry commenting and saying, but one of the events are in South. Yeah, so what? So just one? I think it's time for them to do better.
The ministry has indicated by that same release I mentioned earlier that they take allegations of discrimination very seriously and that they are willing to conduct an investigation once details are provided. Do you plan on taking this any further? Do you plan on actually putting further requests for investigation to take place?
Honestly, I don't think that they would pull that off because I have been trying to be in contact with Minister Cummins since last year, when I was named Commonwealth Young Person of the Year 2023. And I won a National Youth Award back in 2021. And then my organization won one the year after. And then the following year after that, Raoul's Clubhouse, which is our autism center, won another. And, for the past 2 or 3 years as well, since we've been winning, I've been telling him, let's discuss our work and how we can collaborate, because he has all these programs as well. And he doesn't even focus on youths with special needs or disabilities. And, he still hasn't reached out. He gave the number to the secretary. I sent a letter, somehow Minister Cummins and I, we seem to be communicating with each other through the media. Even when I won the Commonwealth Young Person of the Year title, all the ministers were there present in London. They all came up to congratulate me, big hugs and big everything. And it was like 2 or 3 days later, I just saw a press release statement from Minister Cummins here in Trinidad. He didn't even call to say anything.
Do you feel that you have been let down by the minister?
I have been, and I feel discriminated as well.
You feel discriminated as well?
Yeah, because if you notice when they first had like the 40 under 40 program with the ministry, majority of the persons involved were Africans. There were barely any Indians and so on. And I feel as if, we are not given a chance as well. But I think it's really important for Minister Cummins as well to, start collaborating and teaming up with representatives from each of the areas in Trinidad and Tobago, in South, North, Central, and so on. And each area should have a representative of youth, and that youth could be the voice for that area. So all the ideas and collaborations and so on can come together, and it would be better for when it is they are having these events and activities, so they would be able to suggest, okay, not just Port of Spain, let's have one in each of these areas.
So you are of the opinion, or you're suggesting that even, for example, and the 40 under 40 program, which I believe it's in its second year running, if I'm not mistaken, you believe that in itself is more favored or geared to its well, based off of what you said, one ethnicity in Trinidad?
Well, I saw for the second rounds that there was a bit mix of the ethnicity. So I think, that they are trying to include other persons. And, I hope it is persons from throughout Trinidad and Tobago as well. I know, and not just from 1 or 2 particular areas.
So, Mike, going forward, from this point, going forward, what more would you like to see done in terms of positive and affirmative action?
Simply for the ministry to just be fair to all youths, this means having the events and activities and programs equally accessible and available to all, and just organize the events and activities during the day throughout the country. That means in rural areas as well. And, have it as the motivational sessions, as I said, and not just as the concerts or these fets that they're having. And it would cost way less. And, also to just consult with youth change makers from the areas, as I kept saying, we have the ideas, we have the perspectives, we have the opinions, and, we should be allowed to express them.
Well, Maya, I want to thank you for joining me on the program. I will tell you that not many young people, in fact, not many people would be able or willing as you have to speak so openly and express your opinion so openly. So that is certainly something of which I must say it's quite refreshing that you are speaking your mind openly. So thank you very much for joining me on the program.
Yeah, thank you. And it's not many people that whose voices they hear, because if you notice on the comments on Facebook as well, they are commenting and stuff, and some they are even blatantly ignoring. So, I'm just happy to have that voice for the youth throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And I've been posting it on my social media story and so on. And so many people have been actually reaching out and saying that they wish it were in South or Central and so on, and that they feel really demotivated by it and so on. So, I will continue being a voice for the youths and young people throughout Trinidad and Tobago.
Indeed, continue doing that, Maya. Continue your work and continue your efforts. And let's see if there anything further from the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. But for the time being, thank you very much for joining me on the program. And thank you for all your efforts. Take care. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Youth advocates Maya Kurti Nanan joining me on AM Prime this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Not afraid to speak her true thoughts and opinions on the situation stemming from the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. In respect to Youth Week 2024, I will be quite honest with you, I was rather surprised when I got the schedule because we did get an invitation to attend the opening at Napa earlier this week. Unfortunately, I was not in a position to attend, but when I did see the schedule, I was a bit taken aback that everything was taking place at Napa, considering that it's Youth Week 2024 on the part of the ministry. That being said, Maya has expressed her thoughts. The ministry has responded. They are willing to have a further investigation because, according to them, they take allegations of discrimination very seriously, whether or not that happens. Because, according to Maya, there have been youth as well who have been commenting on the situation via social media. So perhaps the ministry has enough evidence to have an investigation. But even in respect to discrimination in other areas on the part of the ministry, that's interesting indeed, that those allegations coming from Maya. But again, a young person speaking out, speaking their thoughts and opinions, I wonder who is listening. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime, and when we return, we'll continue the conversations. We'll be right back.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of have to stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break a balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh, available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando, paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop Ariapita Avenue Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
In the studio, now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Welcome back to AM Prime. Thank you for being with us this morning. Let's continue a debate about which has picked up some pace over the last week following the commentary by the Prime Minister. And we're not getting into a course of arms debate anymore, ladies and gentlemen. We're now focusing on something that has been delayed for years upon years, and that is Trinidad and Tobago's ascension to the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, and our, ending our affiliation with the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council out of the United Kingdom. Now, the CCJ was established in 2001 in Trinidad and Tobago, and the objective of the CCJ was to provide the Caribbean community with accessible, fair, efficient, innovative, and an impartial justice system built on jurisprudence that's reflective of our history as a Caribbean people, our values and our traditions, but remaining independent. So, exactly what has been the delay? Do we need to have a further examination of our relationship with the GCPC as well as the Caribbean Court of Justice? What are the pros and what are the cons? I'm joined this morning by a gentleman who is the former president of the Senate, an attorney at law, and most recently a political leader of Hope TT, Mr. Timothy Hamill-Smith. Good morning, Mr. Hamill-Smith, and welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Keaton. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much indeed for being with us.
Good morning to all your viewers.
Mr. Hamill-Smith, this debate it's ongoing, and it seems as though now and again it pops up, it gathers some sort of heat. Previous to the Prime Minister's comments, it was the passing of Mr. Simon de Labastide that we spoke further and further about our relationship with the CCJ. What do you suppose has caused this delay? Is it that what is the hesitancy behind Trinidad and Tobago's full membership to the CCJ?
Well, let me put it on the table that I'm in favor of the CCJ. I think we have produced in the Caribbean very competent judges, and I think the way the CCJ was set up allowed for independence. It allowed that you produce the best talent come into the CCJ. But I come from a different perspective. Who benefits from the CCJ or the apex court, if you want to call it? Who benefits are really the people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, lawyers, we're there. We benefit, yes, but we benefit because we get to appear before the court. But the real beneficiaries are the people. And yet all the proposals I have seen, none of them suggest we should go to the people to find out how do they feel about it. And the truth is that in Trinidad and Tobago, and I can only talk for Trinidad and Tobago, there is a sense of suspicion that politicians will interfere with the course of justice. And they can they can point to a number of statements coming from the Privy Council. And therefore, they have a sense that the Privy Council is independent and they're fearful, as it were, of moving from the Privy Council, who have made fairly stringent statements against what you might refer to as political interference in its widest sense. And therefore, you can't dismiss altogether and have lawyers, as it were, impose upon the people who should be the apex court in that scenario. Mm-hmm. And whilst I support ultimately the CCJ, my approach to how the CCJ should come into being is different from what others have put forward. And I dare say that if we had done this 20 years ago, we would be here already.
Uh-huh. What is that approach that you speak of Mr. Hamill-Smith? Your approach to examining the CCJ as TNT being a full member of the CCJ?
All right. So my proposal is that the CCJ should not just be simply a court of appeal in relation to constitutional matters, that they in fact should be an originating court. So, part of the criminal justice system is where we say we have a lot of delay in having matters heard. But if in fact and a lot of that delay surrounds the fact that defendants use the, claims that they breached their constitutional rights, and therefore they begin proceedings parallel to the criminal proceedings to have some issue determined on the question of the Constitution. And I'm saying if you used the CCJ as an originating court, if you challenge a question relating to the Constitution, that's where it should start, with the CCJ. And I'm saying that one way in which the people who are the beneficiaries, if I may go back to saying that, may get a sense of the independence, of the worthiness of the judges of the CCJ, is in fact to continue for a period of, say, 5 years, with the CCJ being the originating court for constitutional matters, with a right of appeal to the Privy Council as we have it now. If you had that period, then the people would be able to make some sort of assessment as to whether or not they trust and can place their trust in the CCJ. And at that point, one of the things that we promote at Hope is that you can have a citizens' assembly. Here you have a 5-year window when you could assess the performance of the CCJ. You have a citizens' assembly, which is randomly chosen. You bring the experts in to talk about it. Those who attend can question the experts. So the public gets a sense of where we are relative to the CCJ. And then you can put it to a referendum. And I suggest a referendum where you get a majority of 55% of the vote in order to support removal of the Privy Council. And some people say to me, no, why don't we just move directly to the Privy Council? And I continue to point out that the people who are the beneficiaries ultimately of the justice system have concerns, and rightfully so. I mean, you could recall 3 matters out of hand. There's the matter involving the former Chief Justice Sharma.
Mm-hmm.
There is a matter involving at Petrotrain, Mr. And then you had Mr. Manning himself on the question of,
I'm sorry, Mr. Hamel-Smith. Please forgive me for interrupting. There seems to be some sort of cross of audio connectivity, because I was hearing my directors in the studio there for a moment. But if you will continue now, please.
All right. So I'm saying that they should have an opportunity to assess. Yes, we feel we have trust. And some people seem to think this is just going to come overnight, but not, to my mind, in the scenario where, there are at least 3, and there are many more than that, where the Privy Council have made stringent remarks regarding political interference, if I may put it in those terms. Mm-hmm. And the people deserve to know, will our CCJ stand up to politicians and be independent?
But currently speaking, the structure of the CCG, I mean, even suggesting that there should be a 5-year grace period. Mr. Hamel-Smith, the CCJ was established in 2001. We've had 23 years, and though we are not a full member of the CCG, the mere fact is we've had 23 years to observe how the court is structured and how the court operates. If we are saying that we should have a 5-year grace period, isn't that in itself presenting some level of doubt, or just furthering the hesitancy that already exists in respect to the independence of the CCJ and people's perception of the CCJ being able to execute its roles and functions as intended?
Yeah, so if we had done this 21 years ago, perhaps we would have had 15 years ago, we would have had the CCJ as our apex court. I really come from the point, why should the public be excluded from having a say on this matter when they are the beneficiaries of the justice system? And really, we should have done this in 2001. And you say that we've had 21 years of looking at the CCJ to see whether or not, but we haven't had 21 years of looking at the CCJ in relation to Trinidad and Tobago matters. Certainly not on the Constitution. They do have the originating jurisdiction regarding CARICOM. We've had one or two matters there. And it's not the quality of the judges. I personally believe the judges are top quality that rank with anyone else anywhere in the world. But here you have comments coming from the Privy Council which put in the minds of the public suspicion as to whether politicians interfere or seek to interfere with the criminal justice system. I mentioned those three cases, Malcolm Jones, you remember, with the Petrotrin. You had Mr. Manning in relation to the Muslimeen matter when they made the claim for damages. You had a matter regarding Chief Justice Sharma. Who would not be suspicious in that context? And what I am putting forward is an opportunity that should have started in 2001.
Do you think that people are fully aware, as per the rules of the Privy Council, the rules of the CCG, or indeed what their responsibilities are? Do you think people truly understand the importance of these courts and jurisprudence systems?
I think they do. It's because they understand the importance of our apex court. And they know they have a track record for the Privy Council. Unfortunately, Trinidad and Tobago does not have a track record for the CCJ. And I'm saying, well, let's get a track record. I'm saying right now, we would speed up the criminal justice system if there were the originating court for criminal matters in which the Constitution had been challenged. And yes, you may tell me, well, we don't need 5 years, we need 3 years. That doesn't matter to me. I'm saying the people should have a say.
You're saying an originating court purely on the basis of constitutional matters. So that, in fact, still has our local court systems, including our High Court, operating as normal.
Yes, that is true, but the issues in which the question of political interference occur, I believe all of them you will find were in relation to challenges on the fundamental rights and freedoms in the Constitution, and therefore became constitutional matters. Mm-hmm. And that's where the real crux of the matter is.
It's interesting when you were saying that even commentary coming from the Privy Council has insinuated some level of doubt or fear. There is one particular comment from Lord Bingham of the Privy Council through the case of Surat versus the AG of TNT, and he supports, actually, interestingly, of his comments would suggest that there was support for the role of the CCG in these matters. But to your point on constitutional matters, and I'm quoting now directly from Lord Bingham, he says, to the extent that the answer to the present problem is doubtful, weight should be given to the judgment of Trinidad and Tobago courts, or a judge sitting in a local constitutional environment in which he has grown up and with which he is familiar, is likely to have surer sense of what falls within the purview of the Constitution and what falls beyond than a court sitting many miles away. So Lord Bingham in himself is suggesting that the CCJ, being a court that takes into account our cultural history, our history as a Caribbean people, our culture, and understanding that in itself is more beneficial than perhaps the Privy Council.
All right. And, there's a lot to say about that. If you go back to the Muslimeen case, I think the Privy Council in many ways did us a disservice in the pronouncement they made where they decided to release the Muslimeen, although in the face of the people. One had seen on TV these terrorists invading the parliament. And, 1990 was a watershed period. and the report of the committee right now on the Constitution point to that as a moment when our criminal matters started descending, murders took off. Because, and you know, part of this, in my perspective, is because criminals then believed they could deal with they could commit crime with impunity, and there would be no. And I think that was a great disservice to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So yes, I am in favor of the CCJ. I'm just saying the route, and this is a route we could have adopted in 2001, and we would have been, you know, assuming the people saw that the CCJ, why shouldn't the people have a say when in fact you have that same Privy Council pointing to matters where they say the political director have sought to interfere with the course of justice. And therefore the people who are the beneficiaries do have, you know, a sense of suspicion that the same might happen with the CCJ.
Do you think that the true power, therefore, of a court, the true power, so you know, I am of the opinion, I haven't expressed my opinion, but I am also of the opinion that we should make that move to the CCJ, but, you know, you are absolutely right in relation to what people's perspectives are. So regardless of whether or not we are of the opinion that the Caribbean Court of Justice is a Supreme Court or has the ability to develop a Caribbean jurisprudence even to international levels, international standards, is it that your opinion that the true power of a court lies in the prospective user's mindset or their perception of the fairness of the court and the strength of the court?
Yeah, certainly that's where I come from. You cannot ignore the views of the beneficiaries of that system. I'm not a beneficiary of the system. I might be a beneficiary to the extent that I'm a lawyer appearing before the court. But the matters that are heard before the court generally are members of the public. And they've seen, as I say, this track record of interference pointed out by the very Privy Council themselves, which the Court of Appeal did not point to.
Does our Constitution, Ms. Alma-Smith, does our Constitution in its present form allow for such a referendum?
No, but that's quite possible to create legislation with a referendum. You don't need it in your Constitution to have it. So you can create legislation right now that allows for referendum. The UK did that. They introduced, of course, they have no constitution. They have an unwritten constitution. But you can introduce legislation. There's nothing about our constitution that says you can't have referendums. So I can't see that standalone legislation talking to the question of referendums, talking to the question of citizens' assemblies. Because I don't believe, even around referendums, I mean, you use Brexit as an example. There are many who say Brexit did not serve the UK people well, because what you had was politicians jumping on the bandwagon, having their own say, and trying to persuade the people how terrible it was and what happens if we leave Europe, or if we don't leave Europe, we'll be better off, we'll be more independent, we'll be sovereign. All those issues came up on Brexit. But what would have better served the people of the UK? And that is a pronouncement being made by consultants right now, saying, look, if we had a citizens' assembly, and this is being done in Canada, it's been done in Ireland, it's been done in a number of countries, where the people get to hear opinions of independent experts. They get to question the experts. They get a feeling at the end of the day, is this good for us or is it not good for us? And then come from a more independent perspective. The truth is that politicians will have their own views on these things, which they will seek to impose on the public. That's a reality, whether you're in the UK or whether you're in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, Mr. Hammersmith, given the hesitancy over the last 23 years and the from a historical context, the conversation, as I mentioned, gathers some fire now and again, and then that heat dies down in respect to this debate. Do you think our ascension to the CCJ is a question of whether or when?
I think it's a question of when. I think it's a question of how. So it's not just whether or when, it's when and how. And I think the how is important.
Yeah.
I mean, if right now, today, we could, the public, the political parties could say, you could have an unofficial referendum. Let the next election be a referendum around whether we should have the Privy Council, whether we should have fixed terms for the Prime Minister, whether we should have a fixed election date, limited terms. All manner of things could be put forward and then the election becomes, if you like, more exciting. More people will come out to vote because they feel this is an issue. And it's not binding, but nonetheless, it does put substantive issues before the public to consider when they come to vote. Am I in favor of going directly to the Privy Council? Am I in favor of fixed terms, fixed election dates, limited terms? Am I in favor of recall? Am I in favor of referendums themselves? And this becomes a moment, I think, for Trinidad and Tobago to express itself via the popular vote, because most people, many people, I don't know what percentage, feel that their vote is wasted. And that's a statement made by the National Committee into the Constitution. There are a significant portion don't come out to vote. So you have a 60% vote. How do you know that 40% say, well, why should I waste my time voting when, let's say, I look at my constituency and I know X party will win? Well, so I can stay home. I know Y party will win. Why not stay home?
Mr. Hammersmith, I'm going to ask you to pause there because I think this is a topic I think we're going to have extensive commentary on. Sure. Let's pause on that for now and take a quick break here on the program. One routine, I want to get into now the recommendations on the part of the National Advisory Committee on Constitutional Reform and your thoughts because the sitting cabinet of the People's National Movement-led cabinet have expressed their thoughts and even put forward rejections and acceptance. So let's get into that conversation, but right after these messages.
No, sir.
Caribbean content is growing and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I would ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say, we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year
and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor Jay and Ren.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us. I'm joined by Mr. Timothy Hamel-Smith this morning. We've had a conversation in respect to the Privy Council and the CCG, and Mr. Hamel-Smith has put forward a proposal for a period. He has put forward a period of 5 years, in which the Caribbean Court of Justice would be an originating court that deals with constitutional matters. Not only will it assist in respect to our the current state of our criminal justice system, but also it will give the people of Trinidad and Tobago time to further assess the CCJ and see whether or not they are in favor of the court's ability to rule on jurisprudence in the aspect of Trinidad and Tobago. So the court is in Trinidad and Tobago. We are not full members, so we do not have a fair perspective from a Trinidad and Tobago standpoint. But now that conversation is being put to a pause, let's now focus again on a very hot topic in respect to constitutional reform. Thus far, only the People's National Movement have stated their position on 16 key areas made in the report by the National Advisory Committee. And though I agree that political parties will obviously have a say, I do not think that political parties and their stance should trump that of a nation. It should never be party before nation, but different conversation, different time. Mr. Hamel-Smith is with us. Good morning, sir. And thank you once more for being with us this morning.
Good morning once again, Keaton. Of course, the politicians shouldn't trump nation, which is exactly the point I made regarding the CCJ. So thank you for that input.
Indeed. Mr. Hamel-Smith, in respect to the National Advisory Committee's reports, they focused on 16 key areas, including fixed election dates, reform the rule and the powers of the president. They spoke about proportional representation. They spoke to referendums, actually, as well as the CCJ, increase autonomy for Tobago, reformation of the Salaries Reviews Commission, etc. I'm not going to list all 16, but what are your thoughts on the Constitution recommendations made on the part of the Advisory Committee?
All right, so we can look at the CCJ Act as one, and you know my point of view on that question. Yes, we ultimately come to the same conclusion. The route by which we arrive there is somewhat different between what I propose. But there are some very good proposals. I don't know, let's look at the question of limited terms for a prime minister. In fact, one of the key roles of a leader and what distinguishes him is whether in fact he provided for succession. You can't be there forever. And therefore having limited terms, having, let's say, 2 terms as a limit for a prime minister, means that within that political party, there must be mechanisms provided to allow for succession. That's really building a party to enable that. So, I don't know why, for instance, I understand the PNM didn't look at, favorably upon that recommendation. But certainly, I think it's good for the country. It's good for the actual political party. And there's no downside to it from my perspective. And I can't see why they rejected it out of hand. Certainly, I recall legislation, I think is important. Fixed election dates. I don't know how anybody can resist that. It seems to me an unfair advantage, and therefore not quite democracy. If you're allowed to take the advantage of when an election is called, and having a fixed date, I think, should be there. One of the important things that the committee did was talk about the public service and the commissions. And I like to think that I put forward in our recommendations an issue relating to how we can achieve that. I said before that seeking to remove the commissions is political suicide for any politician to suggest that, because traditionally what we have said is that the commissions come between the public servants and the politicians. And what they put forward is that the permanent secretary the powers of the commission should be delegated to the permanent secretary so that he can, and this is good management practice around the world. If I am going to be held to account for reaching certain targets, if I have the responsibility, surely I should have the authority as to who I hire, as to how I direct them to do their work, as to how I discipline them, all the HR issues around that. And it just makes sense certainly in any corporate enterprise. And if you look at any jurisdiction which has got this right, if you look at New Zealand, you look at Canada, you will see that the permanent secretary has these powers. And that's what the committee suggested occur in order to, the commission remains there. The commission now has supervision, if you like, over the permanent secretary. And that, that becomes a limited number of people. It is no way a commission could look after, 60,000 civil servants? That's not good. It's not. You need to devolve the power so that each ministry or each cluster of ministries has its own HR department, has its power to hire, discipline, direct, because you're asking me, the permanent secretary, to perform. You're asking me to hit certain targets, and yet I have no control over the people who work for me. That's an absurd notion in today's world. Yes, it is, again, a way around it. You see, we can't remove the commission without a special majority. But the section which deals, and there is a section in the Constitution that allows the commission to delegate power. So you exercise that, and it only takes a simple majority. Tomorrow morning, we could achieve that. We could achieve a better public service. Again, it is the people who benefit because they offer services. And the politicians, if you're in a ministry, perhaps you will get implementation of policy far better.
But
you could create better service models.
You yourself said that interfering with the service commissions, you said it benefits the people, but you yourself mentioned it's political suicide for a government to try and deal with service commissions.
No, I said political suicide to remove the commissions altogether. That's what I said. I'm saying here the commissions delegate powers in accordance with good management practice. The commissions remain there. They remain there in order to have supervisor, because the permanent secretary can't review himself. There's a body that has to look at his work and say, how have you performed? Where have you fallen short? So you still have that oversight over the permanent secretary. And that's the role of the commission. The permanent secretary has the authority to run his own ministry, to reach the targets, to implement policy, and at the end of the day, the people benefit from that. I don't know anybody who says that the public service runs perfectly and I get my passport, within 15 minutes. And we can set targets. We can set targets for what we expect. And one of the things that we have said is that then you could introduce the question of incentive pay. Because if you've been set targets, then I have something to look at the permanent secretary to see, did you achieve these targets? And if you don't, because we've said, you should have a public service, perhaps a discount compared to the private sector, but you can make back up that if you have performed. And who benefits? And of course, if the country can afford it, that's always an overriding factor. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. There's no sense imposing that, as we've sought to do in past administrations, when the government itself cannot afford it. So you do have to take in the notion of what is the revenue for the country, and so that you have to make an assessment about this. But we could have a dynamic first-class service if we changed how it was operated. Indeed, one of the strange things when I looked into this matter, if you look at the Commission website, the Commission says our duty is to protect the civil servants, but the civil servants have a union to protect them. So really, we have two unions.
That's what the rule of the union is, yeah, to advocate on behalf of its members.
Of course. So you look at other commissions. You look at the commission, because we have commissions in New Zealand. It's not an unknown feature. And you look at their website, and what is their vision for the civil service? To give the best possible first-class service to the people of New Zealand. And instead, our commission says, our role is to protect the civil servant. I mean, it's no wonder we are where we are.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Smith, with the time that we have left, in respect to the recommendations, were there any points that you found unfavorable, that you thought were unnecessary and not needed at this time?
I can't point to any. I mean, I thought they did a good job, number one, of reviewing the context in which this is happening. I thought it was an excellent job they did there. Certainly the civil service, I would have done a few more things, quite frankly. And you saw one of the things they raised was whether we should have an elected president. And from my perspective, and I don't know quite how people perceive this, I'm not saying I want a president as in the United States, as a chief executive over the country, because that's what they have, a chief executive. I'm saying that we need a president who is an executive president with a substantive job, but who is independent. And how do you get that independence? Because the people voted for the president. Right now, we have it structured. The de facto position is the prime minister appoints the president. And then we expect the president to make independent, of his own volition, independent decisions, appointing independent senators, appointing people to chair commissions, or a variety of things. And one of the things that Hope says is that the president should be elected by the people. In order to be a candidate for the presidency, you have to fulfill the qualifications for a person sitting on a fiscal council. All right? So it's not just random, anybody jump up and say, well, I'm going to be a candidate. It has to be an approved person with suitable qualifications to serve as a fiscal council, because a fiscal council is one of the things we recommend. The president will chair that. That's a substantive job that we see for the president. And that's so vital. If I go back to New Zealand, if you look at New Zealand, in the late 80s, early 90s, they faced the same dilemma that Trinidad faces right now. Gas. They were like a gas economy, natural gas economy. And their revenues from gas just went down to zero. They had to do something. Today, you will see New Zealand in the top 3 or 4 around the world at multiple different occasions, whether it's for governance, whether it's from freedom from in terms of whether they are corrupt.
Well, New Zealand, generally speaking, has become one of those nations which, within the last few years, we've spoken quite extensively of Singapore and even Scandinavian countries. New Zealand has risen to now be one of those model countries that are the ideals and even the structures that are in place that, as you mentioned, generally speaking, overall, seems to be very progressive, very efficient, and very effective.
So do you know what the economy of New Zealand went to after gas? Farming.
I beg your pardon? Sorry?
They went to farming. That was their resort. Let's go into farming. That's why you have New Zealand butter and New Zealand lamb and, a whole variety. They have more to the economy than farming. But farming became the mainstay of the New Zealand economy back in the 1990s.
And one of the biggest exports, yeah.
One of the things they did was introduce fiscal council, fiscal responsibility legislation that provides guardrails to make sure the politicians do what they like. Politicians understand that they want to get re-elected. So sometimes they use, and very often, this is not Trinidad alone, the temptation is to spend your revenues in a way that would allow you to get re-elected. And they brought in these guardrails, and many of our successful nations around the world have brought in fiscal responsibility legislation to have guardrails within parameters within which the government are allowed to spend money to do with GDP and debt, and you set targets for the country. And that is the council we say that the president that we have in mind should head. So it has a twofold remedy. What many commentators on New Zealand said, that was a jumping off point. The introduction of fiscal responsibility legislation was a jumping off point to turn around the economy of New Zealand. So you see what you have today in New Zealand in all the indices, among the top 4 countries and so on.
Mr. Summersville, we are running out of time now, but you did make a statement earlier that, you would have done a lot more in respect to the National Advisory Committee. You think that they did a good job given the parameters of their role, but what more would you have done?
All right, so they did capture a lot of things. In fact, I had presented to them, as many people were invited to, when we were one of the political parties that presented our what we thought the recommendation should be. So one important thing we put forward that I don't see there, and we put forward the notion of duties and responsibilities of citizens, and I see they have adopted that. But one of the things I don't see, we recommended that corruption is an issue that is rampant in Trinidad and Tobago. And alongside violent crime, it is an important part of getting this country right. We've recommended a serious fraud office as a mechanism within the DPP. So it does involve constitutional change, because right now our constitution says the DPP is the head of the criminal justice system in terms of prosecution. And what the difference with a serious fraud office, which is what you'll find in many of the metropolis and why they've got a better handle on corruption, is when you have the prosecutor working in tandem with the forensic investigators, you get better results. Here we have silos between the police investigators and the DPP. Yes, they consult now and again, but they don't work intimately with each other. And that's how it was set up, intended to be. But for corruption, where you have to trace the money, where you have to successfully prosecute, it's a very difficult area. It requires a different specialty. We've said you need a special prosecutor assisted by forensic investigators who work in collaboration with each other to ensure that when you bring the case, you found the paper trail to where the money is, and you make a successful case. And if we did that, if we managed to do that for 2 or 3 high-profile people, I think you will soon find that Trinidad will alter, what we have now is what we consider corruption right through. We have a patronage society. You need to know somebody who knows somebody in order to get anything done. That's a reality, but that's a sad reality.
Yeah.
Every single citizen should be able to go up and get service from the public of a first-class quality. And it's patronage, in fact. And we add layers of bureaucracy. Right now, the company's registry, I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing you could ever perceive. We've put layers and layers of bureaucracy with no result. All you've done is manage to make it more difficult to do anything, and therefore open up the doors to pass some money in order to get it done.
Mr. Amos Smith, the stories I've heard coming in respect of that, even in respect to favors that have become, whether or not you have to pass favors or whether or not there are those who are favored, is atrocious to think that is the case here in TNT. When you have people who want to invest in a business and yet they can't get that done because of all the barriers associated with such.
Yeah. So talk about the ease of doing business. You just rolled it back. You made insurmountable difficulties to carry on business. And you did that voluntarily. Yeah. And you imposed it on the people. It's an atrocious system. Where is Trinidad and Tobago going when all you do is you think that layers of bureaucracy help the country? It doesn't. You need to remove the red tape. In my sense, there should be somebody in the ministry of the Prime Minister whose duty is to go to every service that the country offers and take away the red tape. You make it as simple as possible to get service, because that is holding us back as a country. And these are things that can be done if we had the political will to do it.
Well, Mr. Amos Smith, unfortunately, I wish we can speak further to this issue, but we are indeed out of time. However, for joining me this morning on the program for the conversation, first focusing on the CCG and then constitutional reform, thank you very much for joining me. In fact, you've also touched on some points and key areas, such as the service commissions, that I don't think many have spoken about or shed light on within the last few weeks. So thank you very much, sir, for joining me on AM Prime this morning.
Thank you, Keaton. It was a pleasure to be with you once again, and I look forward to another opportunity.
Always, sir. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Mr. Timothy Hamill-Smith, the former president of the Senate, as well as an attorney at law, and the political leader of Hope TT, joining me on the program this morning. It's interesting. We tend to run out of space on the screen when we have these designations. We try to push it all, but at least we can announce it. So thank you very much to him for joining me indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, with that said, that is the end of AM Prime. Thank you very much for joining me this morning, and thank you very much for joining me this week. And to all my guests, appreciate your presence and sharing your thoughts and opinions with us, your experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, do have a good day ahead. May it be a safe one, maybe a productive one. To my team in WESN that ensures that the show always goes on live, thank you very much to Mr. Milewood and Mr. Joash Alexander. I'm Keaton Shaw, saying that today is a good day to have a good day. And we'll see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
One other hypothesis that's been floated is the possibility that this NFP left-wing coalition falls apart a little bit and that a rebel socialist, Karim Bouamran, who, by the way, has not proposed this in any official way, may break ranks and form a wider coalition with the centre and the right. There is also a possibility that the Republicans, who have very few, they have only 63 seats, there is a chance that they could look to form a government led by Xavier Bertrand, who is a former minister under Sarkozy, and also that they could, if they don't enter the coalition, that they could also selectively offer support on a certain select group of laws and sort of policies behind another government. So we'll have to wait and see. Once again, the President has said, apparently, Olivier Faure gave feedback from this meeting, that the President has said the choice will be quick.
All right, going to be very interesting to see what happens. Antonia, thank you so much for that update. That's our reporter there, Antonia Kerrigan at the Élysée Palace. Well, for some analysis now, we can bring in Nicholas Starton, an associate professor of politics and international relations at John Cabot University in Rome. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Emmanuel Macron has had, all summer to kind of think about how he's going to handle the political situation. What do you think he's trying to figure out with these meetings? And do you think his mind is maybe already made up?
It's a good question. He's had a lot of time to think about it. He's had the Olympic truce, as you were calling it in your piece, to kind of work out what his strategy is. I mean, obviously, he would favour some kind of centrist coalition that might include the Republicans and possibly peeling off the right wing of the Socialist Party. The problem is, I think, for Macron, is that historically France hasn't really been built around coalitions of the centre. Coalitions have always kind of been of the left and of the right. So, he finds himself in uncharted territory, I would say, in terms of which way to go. He's obviously had what appears to be on the surface a relatively positive meeting this morning with the populist front leaders of the left, and it looks like Lucie Castet has not been ruled out as the possible future Prime Minister. It'll be interesting to see how his lunchtime discussions go, because I think he has discussions later today where he'll be talking to his broad coalition of the centre, which comprises lots of little different parties, and he's going to need to get everybody on board with his eyes and thoughts on that. And I guess also, we've got to wait till Monday, I think, before anything concrete probably happens, because he'll also be talking to the Rassemblement National leaders, probably both Le Pen and Bardella, on Monday. So I think his heart would sort of say, look, I really want to build this coalition of the centre, but I can't see how he can really avoid not utilising the Popular Front, given that they are the biggest seat holder in the French National Assembly. They have 193 seats. So at this stage it's difficult to really predict where it's going to go, but I think give it 24 hours, 48 hours, we're going to know a lot clearer how this looks, and I would suspect a Prime Minister to be nominated probably on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, as you said, the left-wing bloc is the biggest group. That's their argument. They basically say, Emmanuel Macron, you can't look anywhere else but us, otherwise it's illegitimate. Do you think that that's true, that Macron is ultimately going to go with the left-wing bloc?
Well, I wouldn't want to speculate too much at this stage. I think he would prefer to be trying to peel off the socialists away from the left-wing bloc, and potentially the Greens as well. I think he's reticent about a coalition that would include France Insoumise. So, he's really got a difficult 24, 48 hours to work out how this is going to go. I mean, look, at one stage, we were very much talking about Xavier Bertrand as a possible Prime Minister. But as you pointed out in your piece earlier, the Republicans have only got 63 seats. And even if there was to be some kind of coalition between the Republicans and the centre, they're not necessarily really reflecting the democratic process when, as we've already discussed, the Front de Gauche, or the New Popular Front, as it's now called, got 193 seats. So I wouldn't want to actually wager live on France 24 who's going to become the Prime Minister. I'm not sure it's really any clearer after today's discussion. But I think one thing we can say is it is possible that Lucie Castet could be the next French Prime Minister.
And the results of the snap elections were already sort of a slap in the face for Emmanuel Macron. Has waiting this long also weakened his position and the way that people see him in and outside of France?
I'm not sure it has. I think he got a little bit of a bounce in terms of the Olympics. I think that seemed to pass off well, and it gave people a little bit of time to think about what was going on in French political circles. So I actually think probably having this little bit of extra time has been to his advantage. It's kind of negated a little bit some of the radical calls from the right and the left in terms of what's going to happen next. I mean, at one stage, the New Popular Front were talking about a potential impeachment of the president if they didn't go along with his thoughts on who should be, with their thoughts on who should be prime minister. But there doesn't seem to have been any of that kind of language this morning. There hasn't been any kind of, strong talk from the New Popular Front about things like impeachment. It'll be interesting to see how the Rassemblement National on the right react to this. They're obviously a key player as well. They didn't do as well in the parliamentary elections as they initially thought they would. They've still got a significant rump in the National Assembly, and Macron, I think, will be obliged to talk closely with the leadership of the Rassemblement National as he moves forward with his coalition. But I would doubt that the RM will feature in that. I think what he's looking to do is try to get some kind of coalition which would ensure stability, bearing in mind, the next presidential elections are not until the spring of 2027. So he's got to make this work for the remainder of his second term of office.
Well, I wanted to ask you what the remainder of his term in office, what do you think it's going to look like? I mean, once a prime minister is named, what happens next, and what kind of governing capacity is the next government going to have?
I didn't catch your question there, actually, I'm afraid, because my it wasn't very clear. My end it lagged out. Could you just repeat the question quickly for me?
Yeah, sorry. I was just asking, you know, what the end of Emmanuel Macron's term is going to look like once he does name a prime minister and a new government. What's their governing capacity going to be like?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult, I think, for the president, perhaps less difficult for any government that's in power. But I think there will be issues around, you know, what can we do to get legislation passed? We know that the New Popular Front would very much like to revisit the retirement age with regards to the pensions question. So that has the potential to resurface. And there are other issues, you know, which will be difficult, I think, to regulate with a kind of small majority coalition that's been put together, cobbled together. So I think that, you know, the limitations are there for the government, and also, you know, the limitations for the end of the Macron presidency. Suspicion is that he will concentrate primarily on foreign policy. There's a lot going on in the world, and I think, you know, he will be looking to kind of reassert himself as a statesman on the world stage, and hoping that at the domestic level, whichever government takes power can kind of keep going until the end of his presidency without great crisis, even if, you know, this government does not actually produce massive amounts of legislation moving forward.
All right, Nicholas Starton, thank you again so much for your analysis today. We'll have to leave it there. That's Nicholas Starton, an associate professor of politics